A pipeline to Gulf Coast talent is emerging for Ole Miss. And also, what are we going to do with Michael Trigg in the fall? We have some plans for that. Anyway, this is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Hope everybody is having a happy Monday and is going to have a joyous last week of the year. Hey, this is opening day Major League Baseball week. That's the reason I'm wearing what I'm wearing, honestly, just to celebrate what's going on. So that's Thursday. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. Please subscribe, comment, and upvote if you don't mind. Anyway, Jeffery Rush has committed to Ole Miss, and this comes on the heels of Chris Davis from Picayune committing to Ole Miss. And there's four really big Gulf Coast, Mississippi Gulf Coast prospects. You have Jeffery Rush from Pascagoula. You have Jamonta Waller from Picayune. You have Chris Davis from Picayune. And you have Noreel White, who I think is from St. Martin. If I get that wrong, forgive me. I think it's St. Martin, though. But those four players are kind of linchpin players in a deep Mississippi class. These are tentpole type prospects. And it's not one that we need to be just kind of like glossing over just because they're not, Waller's the number one or number two player in the state, depending on which service you go to. But the others are significant players as well as far as recruiting. These are big, big gets for Ole Miss. And if you look at what Jeffery Rush brings to the table, this is his industry ranking from On3. On3 has him as a low-rated 4-star. 24/7 has him as the number 61 player in the country, number 3 in Mississippi. ESPN has him similar, about 126, and the third player in Mississippi. And Rivals has him at 208, second lowest, 9th in the state. Now, the question that I have, and what you will see whenever we look in his video in a second, is exactly whether or not he is twitchy enough to play the jack in position. And what I'm saying is he the type of player that is going to excel at playing that Marquise Haynes role, that Sam Williams type role, really twitchy type players. And at this point, I do not know if he's that or if he is a Marcus Tillman type strong side defensive lineman. Both excellent, excellent players, but I want to see exactly what they project to at the next level. If you look at it, his height and weight, he's 6'1", 265 pounds. There's a chance he could grow up into a 3 technique. It would not surprise me to see him get to a training table at Ole Miss and put on work and just grow himself out of exactly what he is currently in. It's not an insult to him. It's just the way nature kind of works. So we'll see exactly what he does. He has a chance to be a really good player. He just does. He has a chance to be a real good player. Whether he's a 3 technique, he's strong side defensive end, or if he's twitchy enough to play that defensive end position, he has a chance to be a really, really good player. Now, we talked about the other players that are down on the coast. You have Chris Davis, the running back out of Picayune High School, okay? And you have Jamonta Waller, also out of Picayune. So there's going to be an emphasis on Picayune High School. And having Chris Davis, do not think that Ole Miss is caffing and a cowing for Chris Davis. Chris Davis, if it wasn't for Dante Dowdle last year, would have been a national level recruit already by now. He's already breaking out. He came as a low 3-star as the year began. He started combining, and now he's up to 4-star level, and he's only going to keep going up. Even with or without Jamonta Waller, Chris Davis was going to be a dude. But that also probably helps with Jamonta Waller, who is a really good player. He is twitchy enough to play that jack position. He is twitchy enough to be that hybrid defensive end linebacker that is so prevalent in this defense. So if you get them both, And if you can grab Cam Franklin, you have just remade your defensive line for 4 years. You're talking about ball players. And then Noreel White, who was the first of the Coast players to commit when he committed to Arkansas, but he is going to visit Ole Miss, I think, this weekend. It's one of the next 2 weekends or so. He is going to be in Oxford. Honestly, I would put him on flip watch at the moment. Nothing against Arkansas, I'm not saying anything, but the impression that I get looking at everything is that Rush, Waller, and Davis and White are all kind of in a group, being those coastal athletes. They all know each other. And Noreel White commented on the commitment of Chris Davis. I think he commented on Jeffery Rush. There's a chance that the coast inroads could be made as well. Really good football players. I'm excited. I told you a couple weeks ago that football recruiting is really honestly kicking off. Now it's starting to get going. I think Ole Miss is at 5 commitments now, 4 of them from the state of Mississippi for those that keep track of that type thing. And we'll only see it's getting better and better and better. And there's a chance that I think it looks really good right now for Caleb Odom, the tight end out of Georgia. Damon Williams was in town this past weekend, and he is recruiting Caleb really, really hard. So there's a chance a lot of good news could be coming for Ole Miss in the future. Honestly, this reminds me of the 2019 class. There was about a 3-week period where Ole Miss got about 12 or 13 commits. I think something similar could happen, and we'll get some answers on exactly how the recruiting is going on in the state. Maybe not specifics, but we can find out exactly the recruiting strategy of the, I've got a bunch of questions that I want to ask, and we will get that taken care of as well. In the second segment of the show, we're going to talk about, what do we do with Michael Trigg? He is such an elite athlete, struggled at tight end. What do we do with Michael Trigg? So that is the interesting question of the day. But I do want to tell you first that today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. The Built March Madness bracket is here. We know you have a favorite bar or puff. Now is your time to make it count. Go to BuiltMarchMadness.com to vote for your favorite. I'll be voting for the double chocolate bar. And if you want them to win, you'll be voting for that bar too. Support your team, support your bar or puff. And when you vote for that favorite bar or puff, you'll be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built. 50 of them. It's pretty cool. Not only that, but one Locked On fan will receive a 12-month subscription to Built to have the nation's best Built bars delivered monthly straight to your door. That's pretty cool. You got to try Built. Built is the best protein bar ever. Seriously. They're so amazing that you won't think they're good for you. Why are they so good? Well, for starters, they're high on protein, low in sugar, covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. So run to BuiltMarchMadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff and pick up a box while you're there. You can vote every day in March, which time's running out there. So hop in and support your pick. All right, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Make sure you check out our brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. Everything you need to know about college basketball in one place. Plus, you get to hear from big-name experts, insiders, coaches, and players. Locked On College Basketball is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. All right, Michael Trigg. Now, the practice report, we were going to have somebody there on Saturday. Life happened. They weren't able to get there. We're going to have Dalen from the Dalen Show, at the Dalen Show. Give him a follow as well. He is going to cover the next 3 Saturday practices and let you know exactly what's going on. We're going to have him on the show. But this Saturday kind of fell through. So we were at the mercy of what we were able to find online, because obviously being in Central Florida, it's hard for me to see that. And look at videos from Ole Miss and stuff like that to kind of get an idea of how the first practice went. Now, first thing that everybody needs to know about is apparently Jaxson Dart's looking really good. Now, we said, and Bill Flowers has said as well, that the importance to this quarterback position is not talent-based. It's about decision-making. It's about getting the ball out of your hand. It's about not turning the ball over. It's about using all portions of the field. It's about being a well-rounded quarterback, not just a overly talented quarterback. Well, apparently this year, Jaxson Dart has been showing that. And Walker Howard has been displaying deep ball skills and throwing the ball and has the arm talent really similar to Jaxson Dart. Then you have Spencer Sanders, which they're kind of slow playing with. Whenever he plays, he absolutely lets it rip, but you feel like they're kind of load managing him just a little bit. And the fact that he's a 4-year starter, they're able to do that because there's not concepts necessarily that he is trying to learn, but he can pick up this offense relatively quickly. That's what I think. My rankings after 3 practices, 20% of spring practice done. Jaxson Dart, number 1. Walker Howard, number 2. Spencer Sanders, number 3. That is my prediction after 20% of spring practice done. Now, what do we do about Michael Trigg? That is the interesting question that everybody is going to care about. What do we do about Michael Trigg? Michael Trigg is an elite athlete. He is somebody out there that linebackers are not going to be able to cover, and he is too big for DBs. He is a walking mismatch. So what do we do with Michael Trigg? Because he has to be on the field. The problem with Michael Trigg is last year his blocking was not as good as you would need it to be. Just period. It's not a slam on Michael Trigg or anything. It's just kind of is what it is. Now, I have an idea that we can do that everything would win and Ole Miss football would probably be better for it. Right now, Jordan Watkins, who was our returning slot receiver, is out with an injury. And because of that, they're kind of mixing and matching out at that slot position. And one of those that they're doing, apparently, is Michael Trigg. And that is the idea I want to talk about. I am Team 12 personnel, and I will speak it into existence. Last year, I was Team 20 personnel, and we did not see it until a little bit into the bowl game. But right now, I am Team 12 personnel. And what 12 personnel means is 1 running back, 2 tight ends. Anytime you hear a number of what personnel grouping is, the first number is running back, the second number is tight ends. Wide receivers are what's left over. They don't need a number because there's only a certain number of backs that you can have in the backfield at a time. So Michael Trigg playing slot receiver would be a matchup nightmare, especially we talked to John Garcia on Saturday about it. Obviously, I'm ate up in the brain with this right now. And I'm thinking about all the different ways that it can work. Because over the middle of the field, Michael Trigg has a chance to be a weapon. Almost an Elijah Moore type weapon over the middle of the field. They might do it differently, but you have a chance to really affect linebackers. And like we've told you for 2 years at this point, when this offense is really clicking, it's affecting linebackers. It's causing false steps in multiple directions. There's a lot of movement, a lot of deception to give you that extra half second that you need to get a tight end open, to spring a running play, to throw a deep ball. All of these false steps and deception play into your hand. And oftentimes, whenever you see Ole Miss running the ball because of this, when it's going well, the running back's not getting touched to the second or third level because the false steps led them the wrong direction. They weren't where they were supposed to be. And Michael Trigg playing the slot receiver in 12 personnel with Caden Prieskorn as the tight end, the slot receiver is Michael Trigg. That has a chance to make the middle of the field really, really effective. Like just a pure weapon. And down the field, you know, you've seen videos on Twitter from Ole Miss with Chris Marshall flashing during spring already, making some fairly unbelievable catches. You have Trey Harris on the other side. You have players with all kinds of experience. You've got experience all behind them. I do think Jeremiah Dillon and Braylon Brown are the 2 players that Ole Miss fans need to keep an eye on. I think they have a chance to be really good and to take a step and to kind of come out of nowhere, okay? But those are the 2 players that I would put in the, oh, who are they category. to go behind Chris Marshall and Trey Harris. And you have a chance for that wide receiver room to be unbelievably deep. And saying that, you can almost make it to where it's the outside wide receivers and the inside wide receivers. And this is something that Mike Leach did at Mississippi State. And on the inside wide receivers, you can have the Michael Triggs. Maybe you can, however, Devontae Carter or Connor or Kyron Heath. That might be a position for them on the inside. Like I said, I am team 12 personnel and the ability to use this. Georgia proved that running 12 personnel can be just murderous on defense designed to stop an RPO. Because linebackers on the outside having to split differences to handle the run game and the pass game, whenever you're halfway doing something, you're not really doing it. So the receiver has an advantage. The running back has an advantage. But it's less of an advantage for the offense than if you just chose one, where if you're at the beginning just declared where the RPO should go. So it should be quite interesting to see exactly what Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weis Jr. dials up. The quarterback position is, it's booking at the moment. Michael Trigg out of the slot receiver with Caden Prieskorn, that could be a weapon as well. You have the outside receivers that are flashing. You have a chance to have a nice starting unit. I haven't even said Quinshon Judkins yet. Ulysses Bentley IV is apparently balling out in spring, but a lot of that is out of necessity because they're load managing Quinshon, as you can expect. And then Keidrick Criscano, I do not think is here yet. I have not heard anything about him regardless yet. But if he gets here in the fall, they're going to have to do that and load manage Quinshon. So the bulk of it is going to be the walk-ons and Ulysses Bentley IV. So we'll see. Defensively, have not heard much. I'm sure they're making plays, but we are 2 weeks away from actually being able to lay eyes on it. And whenever that happens, we are going to potentially live stream after it. I'm all about that and seeing exactly what this team can do. I'm pretty excited about it, honestly. This team, through 20% of spring practices, are kind of where we needed them to be after 20% of those spring practices. You don't have the worries that you're hearing in the background that we heard last year. The start of spring practice, like, hey, Jaxson don't look like he's supposed to look. You're not hearing that this year. So you have a chance at a breakout type team. And with the 12 personnel and Michael Trigg, you have a chance to make the offense even better, even running the ball, because you have more of a running personnel grouping, even if Michael Trigg is being used in a slot, because he's 240, 250 pounds out there, and no safety wants to get off of that block. Anyway, when we come back, we are going to have our segment on What You Talking About, Willis. Should be pretty good. I'm not 100% sure. Should we be worried about the baseball program? I don't know. We'll talk about that when I come back. All right. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. The tournament is heating up on Florida Atlantic into the Final Four, believe it or not. And there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. But it's because right now FanDuel is giving new customers a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up today and claim your no-sweat first bet. You can wager on everything from the money line to point spreads to which teams will be cutting down the net. Now, I do realize in the state of Mississippi, you have to gamble on sports by going to a brick-and-mortar casino. I get that. But if you go to Memphis, if you go to Jackson, Tennessee, if you go to Nashville, Shreveport, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, even if you go to Delta, Louisiana, you can sign up and use the FanDuel app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So don't miss out at your shot at a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Do us a favor, go to the YouTube page, subscribe, comment, upvote, hit the bell for notifications, and it should be pretty awesome. Anyway, just want to let everybody know our hearts are with the people around Amory and Rolling Fork with the disastrous tornadoes that went through, I guess, over the weekend. I guess that may have been Friday night. So horrible weather. It's not a surprise to anybody. I'm from South Mississippi, and tornado season in North Mississippi and into Tennessee is literally no joke. Everybody talks about Tornado Alley in Oklahoma and Kansas, but I would put that North Mississippi, North Alabama, Tennessee area, and they're on, well, I think they call it the Dixie Alley or something like that, because it's pretty stressful, and you end up with, weather that's coming in all the time while it's going from cold to hot. But honestly, if you have time to help, please do. If you can donate to tornado relief agencies, please do. I mean, it's absolutely horrible, what has gone on. And there's not really any way to transition to this, but I'm sorry for everybody that's having to go through this, and it's just with a heavy heart, just thinking about it. So we're rooting for you. We're rooting for you, bud. All right. In this week's What You Talking About Willis segment, do we need to worry about the baseball team? Now, as we're recording this, the third game of the Florida series has not been played. So Ole Miss could absolutely win that game, okay? But we're going to go off the first 5 as a sample size. And my immediate thought is, no, we probably don't need to worry about Ole Miss baseball at this point. We've played 2 top 5 teams, and those top 5 teams played like top 5 teams. Now, our pitching, we're down 4 pitchers. It's bad luck. We're getting bad luck paid to Ole Miss for what we didn't get at the end of last season, when everything clicked in, when everything worked all right. Everybody jokes about selling your soul to win a national title. There's a little bit of a joke with that, but there's also a little bit of a serious with that, because everybody that were in the Ole Miss fan base is when Ole Miss was 7-14 in the SEC, would have done just about anything to go on the run they went on, and they got it. So a little bit of this year and what's going on is paying the piper. Now, it's not related. It's just bad luck. It happens. But the knowledge that Hunter Elliott could come back in 2 or 3 weeks, honestly, that Riley Maddox is about to start throwing 100% bullpens, that's good news. That's probably putting him in a similar time frame. So what Ole Miss has to do right now is they need to tread water. They need to just stay alive until the reinforcements get here. It's kind of like the TV show 1923, where the whole premise of the first season was, hey, let's wait for Spencer to get here before we do anything. That's not really a spoiler. That's just what they do. Let's wait for Spencer to get here while we do anything. So they're waiting on reinforcements for the fight. That's kind of what Ole Miss baseball has to do. That's kind of the direction they're going. Now, the trick is Ole Miss needs to win some of these games. They can't be 0-12. If they're 0-12, it's done, because Ole Miss isn't going 15-3 the rest of the way. They're not that team. But if Ole Miss can get a win against Florida, if they can't, they're down 3. They're down. If you're looking at the count for 3 wins, they have to make up 3 wins somewhere in conference play, which means they need to go down to Duty Noble and sweep State. That would be 2. They need to win 2 out of 3 at another road venue, maybe the Alabama series. And that would be the 3 wins if you do the thing where you win 1 game on the road and 2 at home. You just can't get swept. They're in danger of getting swept twice. I do not know the results of that third game. But it is disappointing. And Ole Miss right now has a little bit of a pitching problem. Nothing that's necessarily suicidal, but in the first 2 games against Florida, I think Ole Miss scored 15 or 16 runs and lost both of the games, including one game that they were leading by 3 runs in the 8th inning. Pitching is letting this team down at the moment. Now, not about players necessarily. It's about outs, okay? And there's rumors flowing around that Ole Miss is about to tweak its rotation. Now, whether they are or not, I'm not sure. I've just heard this from 2 different people. Derek Vandy Griff has brought this up on the previous show before Florida, and that is that potentially TJ Quinn could go into the rotation and Jack Doherty goes back into the bullpen. Because you need somebody that can get outs at the end. A game is 27 outs, right? If you can get 15 outs pretty consistently, which Jack Doherty has shown he has been able to do those 15 help you in the beginning of the game or at the end of the game? If your offense is at such a high level, it would behoove you to have it at the end of the game, especially with Mason Nichols. You have basically a dual closer role. Like Derek said, move Rivas to Friday, Saunier to Saturday, TJ Quinn to Sunday. And realize that it's going to be a little bit of trial by fire. It just is. But if you do it, it is probably the way to kind of band-aid this pitching staff at the moment. Because right now is kind of looking like it did at this point last year, honestly. Pitching's a problem. But last year, if you think about it this time, nobody knew that Dylan DeLucci was going to do what he did. Nobody knew that Hunter Elliott was going to become what he became. They may claim they did, but they didn't. At this point, I think Hunter Elliott was still throwing midweeks. So we'll see exactly what happens as this grind moves forward. Like I said, I'm not overly concerned yet about this baseball team. Ole Miss needs to make a regional. That is what they just don't need to miss a regional this year because of momentum going into next season. And I also have thoughts about how Mississippi State and Ole Miss won a national championship the years that the roster limits were expanded because of COVID. And that allowed them to get the depth in their positions that they don't normally have. That's a thought that's just an interesting thought exercise of what's going on. That both State and Ole Miss was able to get past their roster liabilities with numbers by being able to sign and keep extra people by them having extra years of eligibility. I am curious about that as well. Anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Make sure you check out our brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. It has everything you need to know about college basketball in one place. Plus, you can hear from big-name experts, insiders, coaches, and players, especially now that Florida Atlantic is in the Final Four. This Ole Miss basketball team beat a Final Four team. That's crazy, by like 13 points. It was nuts. Anyway, Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Anyway, thank you for watching today. Tomorrow we will keep going. Tomorrow is the 4th spring practice. So we'll have that going on as well. And as the week goes, we will build up as well. And remember, follow at the Dalen Show, who will be our person that is in the stadium watching practice this weekend. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.